I think we've seen a number of these very disruptive technologies over the last few days, today in particular, with big telescopes, multiple telescopes. It's certainly my wheelhouse with a lot of sort of things that I've done. But I'd be interested in hearing some commentary from people on things that are unique and special. I mean, maybe start even with John here in the end. The real niche that is being hit by LCO is the time coverage, and I think that's a unique area of discovery space as well. And so we can maybe work our way across to talk about these disruptive technologies and in part how they can attack the question of double stars, but other questions in astronomy too. So I'll maybe hand it over to John to start.
Well, certainly that was the basic mission and idea of LCO-GT with the global network, was to produce this ability to do 24/7, 365 coverage of any object, including target of opportunity type things, which we can respond to quickly. And I think the enabling technology in all of this is, of course, the computer technology that's just exploding like crazy, but also the related technology of smart motors and the servo technology that is just through the roof in the past few years, that allows a lot of this incredible performance to be achieved in the new equipment. And the software. Working with a team of software engineers at our organization has really opened my eyes to what can be done with software. And I can't tell you how many times our fearless leader in an engineering meeting has said, has just waved off some issue by going, oh, it's just software. And he's right. It turns out to be just software. There's so many things to be done. And we talked earlier about automation of observations and processing and so forth. And I think we have all tremendously underestimated how much that is going to occur in the next. I think it's going to be the ultimate black box. Who mentioned black box? That was John, I think, mentioned, or Joe. Joe mentioned that. This is going to be the ultimate black box. I mean, the whole concept of going to a site to do some observation, it's just going to be quaint. I think you'll just submit an observation. It'll go into a scheduler. A few days or weeks later, your data shows up in an email, and you're done. And you go do it. And it's hard to imagine that in the future, astronomy is a completely automated process other than for education, where you get that real benefit experience for the person learning how it's done.
I guess one comment I would make is it's been sort of impressive to me, it's come through at this meeting, how much we owe a debt to the biologists for the kind of work they do in terms of... Yes! Yes! That was for you, Ed.
That's where the money is.
Exactly. Well, you know, if astronomers had to, you know, try to get some of these technology things to happen, we would have no chance, you know. But, and so in a way, it's good that sciences are sort of interlinked in these various ways. And, you know, in my department, we have this new master's program, and we talk very openly about imaging science and how that crosses lots of different disciplines. And so I think some of the technology, including the Andor cameras and also the SPAD detectors that I talked about just a few minutes ago, are sort of in that category.
Well, my scientific career is about 2 years young, so I don't have a lot to comment on the rapidly advancing technologies, but I do know that as the rate of technology advancements increases, we need to have people who understand and can operate these technologies. That rate of expansion for these people need to be growing as fast or even faster than the technologies if the technologies are to be operated and understood. So that, you know, goes back to what I was talking about with getting people interested in science and technology, which is an important mission for us. And without it, we wouldn't be going anywhere in the future. So that's all I have to say.
One thing about people too, and this relates back to what John was saying about automation and so forth, is that people are expensive, and the degree to which you can automate things and roboticize things makes a very big difference. I know for me, one of the modest things that I run across frequently in my work now is one of the telescopes up at Lowell is a 31-inch, and it's we use the rather extravagant phrase robotic. It's really just scripted. You just send it a list of things to point at, and it does that in a fairly stupid way all night long. But it's a huge time saver for me. I wake up in the morning, got a big stack of FITS files, and I can get the photometry out of that, and that's nice. And so leveraging that sort of thing, I think, is important, and that really does tie back to the software. The software is very important. I was really struck by this very impressive talk from Ed about the speckle work he's doing, and that's enabled by some of these detectors and software detectors and cameras that are out there, but it's also really enabled by the software that people have written, and writing in such a way that it can be used pretty fluidly by people in a pretty straightforward way without having to worry about too much of a learning curve. I think that's very important for all kinds of software for all kinds of people. Makes software easy. Making software easy to use helps everybody and helps it getting used more. The other thing that really has impacted, I thought Joe's talk that mentioned the materials technology. Every time there's been a significant advance in materials technology, there's been a big jump, and I think we're seeing pieces of that starting to come into play with the telescopes that you were talking about, Russ. This Alt-Az initiative is basically kind of exploring the parameter space of where the materials technology is nowadays, and maybe has telescope technology caught up with the recent advances in materials technology. I don't think it has, and there can be some very interesting consequences when that's reconciled.
So yeah, I'd like to make some comments. I think we got to look at much bigger picture, and in fact, I started my astronomy career like 20 years ago, and when I went to Arizona. And I do see the biggest landscape changing for astronomy. And since early on, I remember everybody write a proposal, you go to telescope to collect your data and analyze, you write a paper. And nowadays, of course, you got more and more depend on like a space telescope or some Q observation. And now, of course, there's time domain kind of science. So this is certainly the way to go now. And there's a lot of common science and the common interest. For example, doing the big survey like Sloan digital survey and like a Pan-STAR, for example, that can be done by like an organized way and by this either time domain or this, which is wonderful. But we do have to realize even in this kind of time, this is the wave with all this technology. Of course, more and more people get into the data processing, get to think about science, propose the ideas, which is wonderful. But on the other hand, there's two more areas I think. It certainly, I think, still need to emphasize. One is, as a educator, I'm students, so I think what John pointed out, in the future, this education part has become more challenging, because most can be done remotely, even not able to see. So this is the kind of way I think indeed is another way we have to realize how to get the students involved with the education, and that's the second part. The third part actually, in lot of science, especially if there is some of the science last year, the Nobel Prize winning on this acceleration, this is not always can be done by automatic telescope. It's always have to be done. I think in some ways people have to design special experiments. So therefore, I think the science we have to think about much bigger pictures. In one way, there's common science, time domain or some kind of service kind of science, can be done, by work together. And automatic, all this kind of way. But the other way, I think people got to get trained, and then they can do special experiments their own. For example, build your own instrument or your own telescope with special emphasis, like intensity and interferometry, for example. These all kind of things, I think it certainly is certainly getting lost. Especially I'm at the university, I realize, and the students we usually joke around. They call keyboard astronomer nowadays. It's kind of very challenging for them to realize how this photon come in from telescope all the way to the detector, to eventually become discovery. So this is kind of where I think we, even though we on the one direction we see this wave, but only we do need to emphasize, especially here, I'm not an educator as well. We do need to emphasize in the future, the training and also the spatial experiments as well, and it have to be balanced to be healthy for the astronomy society. Otherwise, 20 years from now, there's nobody able to know how to build an instrument. That would be a shame.
Following up a little bit on that, John, is the when we had the about a dozen conferences for about a dozen years working on automating telescopes and observatories and so forth. One of the surprising things, I think, to the astronomers, so this was a group of amateurs and astronomers, but as Doug Hall pointed out one time, he says, well, we astronomers were the professionals on the astronomy, but these amateurs, they're engineers and they're information technology people, and they're actually the professionals on the instrumentation and so forth, and so we're the amateurs. And so there was this very cooperative effort that really launched a field with meetings and publications. And I noticed one of the things I really noticed at this workshop was during the lunch break, when Ed got up here and started to put reduce up on the screen, there was, half of us were in here, kind of the geeky nature coming out on software and hardware, and so I forecast that the next workshop, probably in Flagstaff, that we'll have more sessions where, and then there was the comments I think Bruce was talking about. We want to hear more about cameras, and so people can bring their cameras, and we'll have lots more of the technical parts of what it takes to bring these various things to fruition. And the fine thing on kind of a disruptive technology, in this case a very good one, it used to be on conferences. Most of the conferences that I've organized, we've had book proceedings from them, but that meant in the offset print days that you had to have a minimum press run, and so I would work hard with advance orders and try to get a book club to pick them up, and so this was a difficult thing to do. Now with on-demand printing, it's easy. We don't have to worry about that anymore.
We can have the necessary run of 5 books.
People would read it.
We're all going to read the book, aren't we? Yes? So another area that I was observing and noting with some interest was the potential for professional amateur collaborations. And I think there's actually a lot of room for improving on that and for pushing on that kind of thing. For example, let me throw out an extreme here. Right now, it is probably easily within reach for amateurs to build and fly and operate their own space telescope. Not necessarily a big one, but it would be something with an aperture of a few inches in diameter. You could get very high precision photometry off of this sort of thing and do astroseismology. That's more of a coordination question than it is actually of a technology question. And that's really kind of one extreme that I see as a possibility, but that's something that amateurs could do on their own without really having to get much involved with professionals at all. And so it's interesting to think about what kind of possibilities are there that we maybe should think more about enhancing. And so that's maybe the next topic I wanted to do a pass on the panel here with, just to throw this out there. And what do you think, John? You want to field that one to start off with?
Well, there's clearly already a lot of collaboration going on between the two. The AAVSO and the Journal of Lunar and Planetary Observers, there's a lot of collaboration going on, a lot of real science being done by amateurs, to the point where it doesn't even really do justice to call them amateurs, other than they're not doing it as a profession. But I think there's I think in a sort of a broader view, I think the real way that we can collaborate together is in the field of education and public outreach. Because I feel that ultimately that activity leads to more science and more funding for science, as the public awareness of what science is, how it works, how it gets funded, why it's so important, all of those things. Science can only benefit from that kind of knowledge by the general public. And I think it's incumbent upon professionals to work with the amateur astronomers who are already involved in public outreach to really reinforce that activity, expand it, give it more credibility by having association with professional organizations. So I think it's that ultimate collaboration with the amateur astronomers to help with education and public outreach that could really make a big difference in science.
I agree with that. Actually, I'd like to do an experiment, which is to ask you guys, so how many of you would say you're here primarily as amateur astronomers? Okay, and then how many are professional astronomers using, let's say, national facilities or something of that order, and you count too, Bill, because the 26 inches national facility. So how many in that category? Okay, and so I was mentioning this point to Russ yesterday that I kind of feel like there's a gap in between, which is kind of, I think, what you're getting at. So I wonder if at the next meeting we could shoot for covering that middle range, which would be people who do public outreach and education at sort of meter class telescopes, because we have a lot of amateurs here who might not have access to a meter class, but are doing good work. And then we have the professionals pretty well represented here, but there doesn't seem to be that middle ground. And so I think we could maybe include a new population of folks at the next meeting.
Are you defining that? Give us some idea of what.
Well, actually, in fact, it is you. It is you. It is your comment that you made to me that said, when Russ was talking about sort of meter class telescopes, you said, well, most people don't have that. Don't have that here. So, and I think, yet I think from the professional standpoint, we look at sort of meter class telescopes can do great research, but oftentimes they're also used at, universities as sort of public outreach tools. And so, I mean, I guess to follow up on the experiment, is there anybody here who would say you're primarily here as somebody who does public outreach in astronomy, as apart from being an amateur, where that happens sometimes? Okay, so. And this is, so this is the smallest of the three populations in the room. And I think that, my only point is that we could improve the next meeting. This has been a great meeting, but we might be able to improve upon this, as, Russ and I already talked about, just by pitching a broader tent, and including that population.
Yeah, so everything that John said, I agree with. The outreach is really good, and I'm not well versed in the physics or math involved with all of the advanced astronomy that we have presented on today, but I'm good with talking. I'm good with outreach, and I guess something I could help with here is, outreach to students, because as a student myself, it's a lot easier for me to connect to them than, it is an old guy with a PhD. So, yeah.
So I would read my notes here, but I forgot my reading glasses, and so. No, I really like that kind of enthusiasm. I think we need more enthusiasm. I think that that sort of thing does lead to more science, and that's the ultimate goal, is to be focused on getting this science done. One of the things that I was struck with was yesterday's discussion about how to coordinate people. One of the things that I have used is some of these new things, such as the internet, to help get things distributed for Lowell Observatory, we have a initiative called LARRY, the Lowell Amateur Research Initiative, where we try to match some of the professionals at Lowell with interested amateurs to get some work done. We have a number of projects that are proposed from the researchers at Lowell that get obviously posted to our website, and members of the Lowell Friends Society and other interested amateurs that find this can apply to work on these particular projects. And so for me, I actually most of the opportunities are actually observing opportunities where people are doing large-scale mapping that actually works very well with small telescopes and big format CCD cameras that are available nowadays. Other people are doing photometry for some of these researchers. I actually have farmed out a more or less a computer modeling job where I built a virtual machine, stuffed it into a zip file that's on this wiki that I put together. There was all this consternation about building a wiki yesterday. I loved it because I built my wiki in about 35 seconds by going to Wikispaces and getting a user account, and then I was done. Wikis are easy to make, they're hard to maintain, and so that's where is actually getting good editing and maintaining of wikis. But I put this virtual machine up. It has all the software pre-installed, so one of the tasks that's often hard time with say like a Linux machine is the installation of the software is in and of itself a learning curve that nobody really needs to learn. If one person does it and installs it on a virtual machine, you can circulate this virtual machine and people just run it. It's like it's a computer file you open up, and all of a sudden you have a Linux box sitting on top of your Windows machine, your Mac machine, whatever you happen to have, and everything's pre-installed. And then for the wiki, I have a series of exercises where basically click on the web page. It says type in this line. You can even cut and paste. It's very easy to cut and paste. And the exercises can get run, and you can actually work your way through the learning curve in a fairly spoon-fed way to get people trained on how to use the software. And then after that, they get into the project area, and they can start actually reducing data for me. And I've gotten 400 or 500 stars, all reduced by these very interested amateurs that are very capable. And this kind of model works very well where you take people through training exercises. You can even have testing exercises, maybe in the case of if you had something like this built to train people how to use the speckle software, let's say. You could tell them, look at these 5 systems on the sky and send us what you think the answer is, and you can actually test them against that. There will be a test. And this way you could train people pretty easily on how to use software like that and start to organize a community people who want to do that. So this is an idea for building on this sort of approach to interactively get people involved and to make it a wiki such that users can edit the files, can update. This instruction said this, but I could put an asterisk here and say, well, this you might run into this problem here. People can actually edit and update it. Tracking those edits is the real hard part, but if you have a few overlords of the site, then things can work out. So this is something I've found to be very useful, and I think this approach would work. For my work, this has worked very well, and I think this would work in the Double Star community. I think it would work with other communities as well, where it's a medium by which you can bring people together to share their enthusiasm for the science topic and attack it in a profitable way.
Okay, so talk about amateur astronomy, and especially this time, I honestly say, I for the first time met so many enthusiastic amateur astronomer in the audience. Honest, so therefore I learned a lot from you guys actually. And in fact, last night probably the single night I observed more objects by eyes than ever I done. So what I want to say here is indeed, we already talked about to coordinate this effort. In the sense, I think the professional astronomer, certainly we can learn a lot from amateur astronomer. We bring a lot of ideas that can outreach and education. In fact, because we can make our education more efficiently. Because that is the whole purpose for us. Not only just doing research. Eventually, we want to get the research go to the public, right? Get more people know astronomy, like what Bob, suggests early on today, is really we can, train more astronomers. Not only have to be that way, but it's also use astronomers too, can train more technologists and the scientists, engineer, all kinds of things. In fact, STEM, you may call, broad say called STEM field. So this is very important. I think in the way I view that this, thanks to Russ, put a humongous energy to push, bring people together. This is the first time I joined his meeting. But certainly I feel like most benefits from this kind of meeting in the way I understand the amateur, what they're interested in and what they can do. They're really very much can do much more than professional in terms of, put telescope together, doing some really cutting edge things in a cold time, cold environment. So therefore, I think the one way to do is like we discussed, and also the Gerard mentioned that to organize some kind of website, so then get more amateur astronomer can be coordinate together. And also we can bring the other way, a professional astronomer could be joining this kind of discussion as well. So this could could make it more bridge both sides. So this is from both ways could be important. First of all, from the amateur point of view, you guys can find your work could be more organized, then you can benefit. You maybe even see some publication in the professional journals. For example, some of the my former student now work at Yale, and he actually just published a paper from this called Citizen Science. The amateur astronomer, they click a button of the Kepler, they found a lot of planets, and they publish this in the professional journals and on the news actually. So therefore, this certainly is the way now amateur astronomer can do not, and even professional maybe even don't have time to do that. So therefore, they can much more rewarding, to have discoveries. And on the hand, I think professional astronomer, we are more like we are so-called, we are in the Eiffel, tower tip. We always just click a board and, I say keyboard astronomer. I become kind of like that, so play around data and this kind of things. But we do need to, get down to the earth to understand what the real astronomy means, So therefore, by this organized meeting and also organize some kind of professional kind of website to bring people together, I think that will certainly set a very good example. And especially I think that a double star, and it's kind of visible and easy to get people understand. I think this could be excellent example to set a new initiative to get this both sides, bring the bridge and build a bridge and get much stronger, benefits from both sides.
I've noticed there's on double stars, there's unusually good cooperation between professionals and amateurs in Spain and France. Quite good in the United States. I mean, we have the U.S. Naval Observatory, and they don't. But one thing I think we can do is just for specific things in the area of double stars, is we can work towards a bigger and better conference not long from now. So we've talked about Flagstaff as the next venue in the fall of 2014 or the spring of 2015, like June, late September or early October if it's in the fall. And so this gives us time to work together and work up a good agenda. And I think we might have twice as many people at the next one. And another, I think, really good thing that we have going for us is the Journal of Double Star Observations. It's just done a tremendous job on that. Kent and I talked a little bit about the future of the JDSO, and this actually relates to where we think that professionals who have already helped out on the JDSO can probably help out even more beyond the board of editors, and maybe as we get into more technical questions. Just for example, this is not necessarily a good example, but we talked about slit mass using for calibration. Well, maybe we'll twist the arm of one of the professional astronomers to write a paper for the JDSO on all you ever want to know about slit mass to put on your telescope. And so I think we can have more cooperation that way. And I think there's going to be proceedings from this conference, your editors met today, and we're going to have proceedings from the conference at the end of the year in book form, and there'll be around the end of the year, the first of next year, there'll be papers from here will be in a special issue of also in a special issue of the JDSO, and at any rate, it's been a wonderful conference. I have just enjoyed this. I'm looking forward to other conferences. We're talking about twisting Al McAllister's arm for a conference at Mount Wilson. Maybe play with his 100-inch talk to Yuri. We should meet at the 5-meter telescope. I don't know if you noticed. 6-meter. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, Yuri. But on his slide, that looked like a very nice place to be at the right time of year. And then I've been talking with smaller telescope amateurs and professionals in France and Spain to have a meeting over there. For those of you who would like to have a late summer vacation in Europe, northern Spain wouldn't be too bad.
Let's take some questions. So Bill first, and then Joe.
Yeah, I should just make a comment. One amateur professional way we can cooperate with each other. I think everybody's familiar with the Double Star Library, which is the Commission 26 website, USNO's website that has the links to all the catalogs. Just recently, I added a section there for observing opportunities. It was essentially anyone could post, I have a telescope and would be willing to observe things, or could anybody observe this object for me? So far, the only thing listed there is us with our 26-inch. But you all are welcome to advertise objects of interest you'd like, others to observe. Start up some sort of collaborations with anybody, amateur, professional, whatever.
Is this intended as a matching service? You post what you want and also post what you have?
At this point, I think it can kind of go whichever way works out well. But at this point, it's just posting either way. I'll be happy to observe these objects. I have a run coming up, and I got some extra time with this equipment. Anybody have any objects of this type? Anything like that is possible at this point.
Okay.
Sure. So I think this is a very good point. Actually, that's reminded me. Actually, for example, we have like a Marvels. We have survey. We have our project has a website. We put all these a team member. They if they're willing to follow up, they will sign up like that. So that reminded me actually. This meeting really reminded me that in the one way I think Ross, including everybody here, maybe it can start from, especially this is getting international. We got quite a few people from Russia and other places. So why just maybe organize some kind of potential, people interested in double star, have the international kind of association, something like that, and then get the people signed to the email address, and basically have the email address regularly. People can get email, kind of announcement or something. Then you can post there, and probably more people know this opportunity. Otherwise, for example, maybe just us know this, and maybe if people are interested in that, maybe they do. But if you get hundreds and hundreds of people, amateur astronomer of the world, they notice you have this, observing opportunities, they might do that for you. And then you can leave the website, and people can download the data, they can put data into your website, then you can automatically collect that data. That's what we do with our professional work, like Marvels, follow up. We do, people put their data into the, those wiki website, internal website, and then after we accumulate enough, we say enough, go ahead, we can write papers. So you could do the same kind of things.
Of course, since we're a DoD website, there probably are some limitations of how much we could, expand things. Just for the obvious reasons, I work for the Navy, But another thing I can also do is I have quite a few links to other double star groups, amateurs and professionals, and I'd be happy to add additional links to any other groups that you think are worthwhile. Just send me a list of them, and I'll be happy to add all that stuff to our website.
I totally agree with you. I mean, you work at the DoD or maybe Navy, you know, that they certainly have the limitation. So it's a better way, maybe not one of the maybe university, you know, to have the middle side.
They would have more.
yeah,
probably
that's
more
right. So then
flexibility
make
than
more
we would.
flexible way to get this going.
Yeah, the Collins Educational Foundation, that Dwight Collins, the president of it, and they help sponsor this conference. They're going to sponsor a website for double stars and things that will help. One that we can upload data on and pictures and so forth. And so Cheryl, another thing she does besides helping organize conferences and teach philosophy is she does websites. So she's going to work on one.
Yeah, when that's set up, I'll provide a link to it.
Excellent.
So, oh, I thought I was first.
Oh, sorry. Yes, yes.
So we've been kind of circling around. Yeah, I like what Jean said about the ivory tower and sort of the way that we amateurs and students look at the professionals and they're all the way up there. Actually, it's not so much a tower as much as a dome usually, but I don't think I don't think there's really anything wrong with that. If anything, it's probably a necessity in a lot of ways. As long as there are these elevators so that we can kind of talk to each other. And it sounds like that's kind of what we've been talking about is how we bridge that. So, one of the ways is through conferences. Another one is through publications like the JDSO and a website, and perhaps a couple of different websites, it sounds like. But it sounds like we're kind of beating the bush around maybe one other one that was brought up yesterday, and that's just a society of some sort. So, anyway.
And people can subscribe to the email. For example, you have the website, or you have the organization. Then we can let people, interesting people know they can subscribe, and then they can get regular email announcements. That's the way it's very efficient. Actually. Sorry. They do? I think
Officially?
I think you have to have an organization that's big enough to be effective. For example, I've been looking at SAS for years and wondering why they're not. Why is their existence a meeting at Big Bear and one publication a year, as compared to? That's right. As long as it's not you or me, we're happy for someone else to do the work. Yeah. So SAS already exists. It could have a double star section, a variable star section. AVSO is not going to have us because, the double star people, because it's not appropriate to their mission. But something like SAS, which is already an existing organization, could think about, broadening its umbrella, or becoming more formal, perhaps, I guess you would say, as long as you can trick someone into doing it. Yeah, right.
There's no barrier to just presenting papers to double star papers.
Oh, yeah. Well, and in fact, not only would they be welcome, but there have been. Not only that, but there have been. Several. But, well, I don't know.
Making organizations. Vine Jed? Did you want to have a comment?
Okay.
Ken, what's the scope of the SAS? How many people are funded by the SAS?
Oh, zero.
Yeah.
And
so this is where there may be a sharp contrast when comparisons are drawn with the WVSO. The WVSO has funded people on staff.
right,
And it's a
right.
different
Yeah, the
scope.
SAS is totally a volunteer interest organization.
So it sounds like we need our own Arnie Hendon or something.
Any other questions along this thread?
You see Bill shrieking in his chair.
It looks interested. Well, I'd say we can have one final round of comments here. We've got a bit more time to throw things out. And kind of closing thoughts on the conference. And, of course, then remarks on the Fermi paradox. To John.
Shouldn't we start at the other end once in a while? A couple of nights ago, we had this long, drawn-out discussion on Fermi paradox solutions. Solutions to the Fermi paradox. Anyway, it's just real quickly, I think it's been a great conference. I think this was a wonderful idea, so thank you, Russ, for pulling this together.
With a tremendous amount of help with Gerard, Eric, Joe, Tom, Cheryl, Steve, and the others. Yeah, this is a true participants conference.
And the other Joe.
I think I'm commented out after that.
Well, it has been a great conference. It's really been a unique experience, I think, first of all, to be on Maui, but also to, as I think John said a little bit ago, to interface with so many amateurs and see a different side of astronomy than I often see, which is, more often than not the political professional side. I'm looking forward to Flagstaff, I think. I think that's a great place for the next conference if we can get the date just right. Thanks.
I'd just like to say that this is the first conference I've ever been to, first to anything like this, and it's really been a joy because it's great to network with all of you and see what is out there. Not a lot of students get a chance to really get a view of what real-world astronomy is like, and this opportunity for me was just fantastic. And I think what everyone is doing here is just fantastic.
I would put real world in quotes. It's as somebody who, again in quotes, is a professional astronomer, I'm always hesitant to use that term amateur with, describing the people in this room doing this kind of work, because it's really high-end work. It's very impressive. I am really thrilled to see the passion that everybody brings to this. I was just enthralled with Bruce's talk. The obvious dedication and love of the subject was really evident, and I really enjoyed that. And I always remark on how I feel it's a luxury for me to get paid to do this, and seeing these kinds of talks really drives that point home. And I really appreciate the interest and the work that the unpaid professionals bring to this. For me, a sign of a successful conference is if I've had interesting interactions and come away from the event with new and interesting ideas, and there's been no shortage of that for me at this particular event. And so I think that this has been really profitable for me to be here, and I really appreciate everything that everybody's brought here, and that's helped me profit from it. So thank you all for coming.
Okay, I have two comments. First comment is, I just want to emphasize my point yesterday is the double star is really, is fascinating to the amateur level. And, but on the hand, nowadays, if you link to the extra planets, it definitely give you the exciting. And that will bring more more people to the table, to join the activity. And I think that's true. In fact, there's a lot of amateur now found a lot of planets through the transits and the Kepler, and there's a lot of things done by amateur now. So therefore, you guys can do wonderful, real professional research, actually. So therefore, I think that the way I view that, it is really important that we need an open mind. This astronomy now, a lot of things can be done, not just with just double star. We can do much more deep in that. For example, like in this lucky imaging, all these things really can do a very professional science there, right? And of course, let alone in the future, when we make the affordable spectrograph, and people can hook up to maybe 0.5 meter telescope or 1 meter telescope, you can find planets. Because nowadays, believe it or not, Kepler already give us the idea. 30% to 50% star, they have Earth-like planets. It's not impossible, which means every, we on the sky you have a couple hundred of stars. They are suitable to look for Earth-like planets, and which means you maybe found 100 of these. So therefore, there could be amateur can play the role. So therefore, I think that this is the way I think to go. Is make the this kind of double star and link to some true frontier research, and that is, I think, is something you guys can gradually get into that kind of groove, and we as get paid to do this job. We all try to help as well. And the second comments I just emphasize what Gerard mentioned. I'm very, very impressed about you guys have more patience than we do in some ways. It's really, stay in the code and say, what star. I probably the first one quit last night, honest. And anyway, so it's just amazing. You guys are really amazing. Build a telescope, put things together, do another observation. I'm truly, truly impressed. So I definitely will look into that in the future. Then much more from you guys to bring more energy to our research, education, and outreach. Okay, thank you.
I think we've had for many years a double star community that's included professionals and amateurs. I think the attitude of the folks at the U.S. Naval Observatory has been one to encourage amateurs. I think the JDSO went a long ways to doing that. We have friends overseas, Bob Argyle and others that have done the same. So has been a community of small and large telescope amateurs and professionals working double stars together. I think what this conference has done is brought a number of us together that we knew each other via emails and so forth, but we hadn't met. And I'm thinking that future conferences will bring more people together, and it's this kind of personal contact, and that I think this is an area that technology is favoring, and I really think so. We have kind of a community. I think that will grow. I think the JDSO will be growing, and our contacts with our friends in Europe, like not many of us amateurs in the U.S. have met the double star amateurs in Europe, but I think we're going to do that.
Joe.
John's the guy with the big building coming up, so maybe well, and I'm not volunteering him. And I wanted to applaud or comment on Gerard's phrase, unpaid professionals. I myself, being just a physicist, I'm just learning about astronomy, and I think it's amazing. And that whenever we use the word amateur, it's not a measure of level of skill in any way. I'm constantly impressed by amateurs, including the ones that we host up the mountain. I guess the last thing I'm going to say is I appreciate this coming together. The last conference I went to with Russ, I now have a colleague where they're going to do a sabbatical here, and we found money for them to do it. And I'm going to be bugging you guys a little bit for the proposal I want to talk to you about. And so this is the great thing. It's always coming together and starting to have some of these exchanges that gets things going. So there are my comments. And Lohan, I'm glad you guys could all come to Maui.